Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It is your boy CIZZY live action from Kansas City, Missouri. You already know. Look, and before y'all get to clowning, I already know. Yes, we lost a 21-3 lead. I'm really not trying to hear it, to be honest. So keep that shit out my comments and keep that to yourself. But we still gonna be back there next year, and this teaches everybody in the city how to be humble and appreciate a long journey. So I'm lit for that. But look, we're back again with another episode. Like I tell you guys every other week, we're coming back with a fire guest. I've done it once again. I don't lie. I only tell the truth. Honesty is the foundation of all human virtues, and y'all should know that by now. So introducing my guy, coming all the way in live on the camera cast, on your computer, on your iPhone from Dallas, Texas. Go ahead and introduce yourself, my brother.
What up? I'm Tej Patel, content creator, photographer, filmmaker. Very excited to be here. And thank you for that introduction because it was very hype. You're very good at those.
Hey man, we just try to bring the energy, man. So I see you're in your space. It looked like that's how you know he's a content producer when you got a space like that. You know, got white background, got
It's
the
just
microphone.
crazy.
It's
I had to
going.
clean it up a little bit before I had to hop up here. I cleaned up a little bit. It's about as clean as it gets.
I love it. I love it, man. So, man, like I told you before we started recording, I want to thank you for allowing, me some time to talk to you today, be able to discuss your journey and talk about, you and everything you're doing now and moving forward, man. The whole podcast is about bringing, Black and brown creatives and entrepreneurs on to discuss, what they do for a living, what their passions are, and discussing the process that led them, to where they're at today. So I appreciate you giving us some time today.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's so valuable. I love like what you're doing with the podcast for that reason, because just diving into these stories, like it helps so many people. That's why I even try to tell my story as much as possible, because it's not really about necessarily myself. Of course, it helps me, but it's like other people get some value out of that. So
Representation, man. That's
exactly, that's
the
a big
major
thing.
importance. Representation is like key. So many people forget, like, especially I say it so much on the podcast about why I do this, but like y'all got to understand, and I'm sure some of my audience does understand. We got a mixed audience, but I'm sure some of you guys understand when you were younger, like we only had, it might be a little bit different for you, and I would love for you to share. But like for me, I only had two types of people to really look up to as something I could become when I'm older, either a rapper or a basketball or a football player. And I was like, well, all right, I guess that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play sports or be a rapper. And so when I was like 17, 18, I graduated and I was like, oh shit, I'm not going to the NFL. I'm not going to the NBA. I'm not going D1. I'm not talented at rapping. I was like, kind of had like a crisis. And then fortunately enough, found my way, the next few years. But um, with that being said, can you kind of share, when you were growing up, maybe what were some of the expectations from society, from family, or representation that you saw growing up for people who look like you, of where you thought you was going to be when you were like 20 or when you were an adult?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what you're saying is exactly right. I think like depending on our background, we all are presented this certain view and this certain box of where we're supposed to fit into. And that's just what's presented to us growing up. So it's like whatever you see growing up, that's how you think, all right, like I'm gonna likely be in one of these categories because that's where
Mhm.
my people that look like me are fitting into. And if I'm not in that, then like I don't know, like it makes you feel like a failure in a way if you don't make it. Like I know that growing up for me as an Indian kid, there's just like the typical stereotypes, like Indians are either doctors, lawyers, engineers, specifically like doctors or engineers. It's like if you're not doing that, then what are you doing with your life? And that's kind of our society has that expectation. And growing up on TV, you see characters like Baljit and
Mhm.
different things like that, which put us in this box like of an Indian kid can't do something cool. You got to be the nerdy kid. You got to be the comic relief. You can't have any style to. You can't do anything creative or cool. It's like we're in this box. And like I never fit into that box. I mean, no, like, really nobody fits into that box that's presented to us. Like nobody really does. but I of course felt like I don't fit into the box. I don't really agree with this. And I started going down my own path over time. But yeah.
Oh yeah, and I kind of want to like ask you when was like who's the earliest memory you have of like, you know, a brown boy or brown girl like that was doing something different. You were like, oh shit, all right, well, I guess I don't have to be an engineer. I don't have to be a doctor. I don't have to go that standard path that society has like placed upon me. Like, who was the first person you remember being like, oh shit? Like for me,
Yeah.
that was like I when I started like maybe like 16 or something, I started watching like old hip hop videos and started watching Dame Dash. I started watching Jay-Z and seeing a lot of them like talk about the business and talk about how they built this up, and Damon John with Fubu, and like just started like tapping into like hip hop culture and hip hop entrepreneurship. And I was like, oh, so you don't have, you can be more than just the rapper. There's stuff outside of that. There's like business. And that's when I was like, oh shit, I think that's the route I want to start looking at. So like, who was that for you? Like, who are the people that stood out to you and kind of inspired you to move into like creativity and content creation and business?
Yeah, I was definitely inspired by so many like of the early YouTubers,
Mm-hmm.
specifically like, you know, so many of the early YouTubers like were more so East Asian. Like I'm Indian, but there wasn't even like an Indian on the platform that I was looking at in the early days. Indians did come, but there was people like, you know, Ryan Higa, Kev Jumba, like everybody was watching those guys when I was growing up in like elementary school, and they were Asian. They used talking about East Asian things, which was cool, and I actually related to a lot of it. And then people like Lily Singh hopped on the platforms, people like Just Rain, like, and they were still in that comedy niche. But I realized that this is cool because they're just making videos, and they make like, if I saw like from the early days of how they like progress, like from making videos in their room to like being really big YouTube stars. And I was like, this is really cool because I've always been interested in that, like just like that YouTube world, because it felt so accessible to me versus like and the other side of me always wanted to be like this big, working on big productions, doing big movies and that thing. But it always felt like it felt like so crazy to me to even do that. So I was like, YouTube is cool because like they're doing it, like I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
those were the people that I really were made me feel, I guess, in a way that, oh yeah, like this is something that I could do.
I love it. I love it. And I think sometimes people often forget like why so many people are attracted to becoming content creators now. Like, and you just gave kind of a great example where it seems 50 times more tangible, you know, like than you know, becoming this huge Hollywood actor, which is also possible, but seems kind of like, oh, that's a whole new world. But when you're watching these people at the beginning and you're watching them progress through their, you know, YouTube journey from, like you said, their basement, from their bedroom, from their garage,
The
and then
garage right here. Y'all
exactly,
gonna see.
exactly. Major vibes, major vibes.
Yeah.
Y'all about to see what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you see them start there, and then you see their journey progress, and then from there they're like, oh, like, you know, like finally I'm making enough money from YouTube or from this brand deal or this, you know, we'll get into that later, but getting this opportunity, I'm getting into my first apartment. Then you see them in their small little studio apartment, but it's their own. And then you see them progress to this and
Yeah.
this and
That's the
this.
coolest part.
Yeah, it's a
That's the
beautiful,
coolest
it's the
part.
journey. It's the journey that's the most powerful. And I think when people understand that, just, you know, when we apply that same concept to life, like that's where the growth and the happiness and the joy really happens, is in the progression to where you want to be. Once you get there, like it's over. You
It's
get what I'm
done.
saying?
You
So
already did it.
exactly. So
Yeah.
then you got to create 70,000 new goals, which is why people get stressed and are never happy with the amount of money they get or this, because their understanding of the journey is different. It's they're focused on the goal instead of enjoying and embracing the process, right?
Exactly.
I
I
love
like
it.
what you said. I think, yeah, that's a big point. Like that whole journey aspect, I think is one. So there's two things I want to say. One is that journey aspect is so crucial because that's where people are building their relationship with these creators. And that's what they're getting inspired to be like, I could do this too. Like, cause I actually saw it. Like I saw the whole thing. Like they were relatively undiscovered. And we see it every day on these platforms. that we see a relatively undiscovered person go from not like pretty much nothing to somebody you just saw to something really big. And that's a big deal, because at the end of the day, like I'm making films, like I'm into making films and photos and everything I've been doing only to really inspire other people to make impacts. And I realize, especially watching people like Casey Neistat as well on YouTube, that, well, I don't need to make like a big, huge movie production to impact people. I can do that just making simple videos, making impactful videos that don't need a big budget. I can do it just myself using whatever skills I have, whatever story I want to tell.
I love it. I love it. And I'm pretty sure the audience has probably picked up on it by now, but let's talk about what you do. What do you do? What do you spend your time doing? What is your job? What is your work? What is your creativity? Where do you put all that energy? What are you interested in? Because, you know, me, I can define you maybe as from my perspective, as a, you know, creator, but how do you define yourself and the work you do?
You know, I would agree with you. I'm definitely a creator, and I like to say, like, I'm half artist and half business in that way, meaning that I'm always, those two sides of me is like the yin and yang. Like they're always kind of going against each other, but they also support each other. So on the same time, like me being a creative and me pursuing telling my own stories and being a content creator, on the whole other side, I'm telling other people's stories. So I'm helping brands, I'm helping people tell their stories. So most recently, I've been working with the NFL to create content for them this season. And, you know, I was working with pretty much, I shoot all the home games for the Cowboys. So that's what I've been doing. And before that, and still I'm working with Ezekiel Elliott, who's running back on the Cowboys. So doing content for him, doing content for other players too, like CeeDee Lamb, and overall just working with different brands and people with personal brands, helping them tell their stories. I mean, that's really my skill. So I've been doing that for years and years, just trying to work with as many people as possible that trust me to do that for them. And I love doing that because I get to experience new things and just meet so many cool people that trust my vision to help them with whatever they are trying to do, whatever story they're trying to tell or their goals. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. And I want to like kind of double back to like, you know, when you were super young, you know, you're 10, 11 years old, did you foresee yourself being a content creator there? I know you and creator, a brand developer. I don't want to just limit you to one box or anything.
You're
but
cool. I like the creator. I like the name creator. We could say
say
you can
less.
roll with
All
that.
right. So did you
Yeah.
know that you were going to be a creator at that point? I know you mentioned like some of the early YouTubers that you got into and that other people were watching these YouTubers. So at that point, when you started like, I guess, interacting on YouTube, were you like, oh, this is what I'm going to do? Or were you kind of like, this is just entertainment and I'm focused on something else? What were like your early goals when you're like a young man or a young teenager before, you know, you dived into the life of being a full-on adult?
Yeah. So in fourth grade, I remember this specific moment. I told my art teacher, because he was asking everybody in the class, what do you guys want to be when you grow up? When he got to me, I was like, I want to be a photographer. And I really think I only told my art teacher because I thought that being a photographer was ridiculous, like to everybody else. Like I wouldn't tell anybody else, but I told my art teacher because he's my art teacher. Like he makes sculptures for a living. So I'm like, you know, he'll understand. So I told him, like literally just a casual class ask. It wasn't even that serious, but I remember it because I was like, he actually told me, like, he was like, oh yeah, that's really cool. Like, you know, our high school has these little programs to develop film at the time. Like he's thinking film, like we don't even know what that by the time I got to high school, that was all about to be digital. But yeah, like I told my fourth grade art teacher that I want to be a photographer. But it was so interesting because I guess at the same time, like I always wanted to also relate that into just being a YouTuber as well, because I was trying to make small little dumb videos on YouTube when I was a kid too, which hopefully the world never finds because I don't think they're still there. But
Audience engage search. Audience
engage
engage
search.
search.
Yeah, they're about to engage in search, but Yeah, but pretty much like I kind of always wanted to do YouTube, but more so I saw like photography and video as like, I guess more of like a path that like I saw that, okay, I could actually kind of do that.
I love it. I love it. And so we're transitioning into high school. You're 17, 18. Are you taking a lot of photography classes? Are you taking a lot of digital media classes? What are you doing with your time when you're a teenager? Or are you out here wilding? What are you doing when you're
Yeah, no,
17? What does life
I
look
pretty
like?
much, yeah, so like when I was in high school, I definitely was in the video classes at school. So one of our classes was actually two blocks long. So like you could
Damn.
say a big part of my, I think it was like two or three like blocks of the day were just that class. So you could say like a huge part of my high school time in high school was dedicated to that, because when I got there, I just I got into that class, and I think I took that class longer than most people because I was just like, this is what I want to do. So I took that class longer than most people. And in fact, because I had already like built up so much knowledge over the years, I kind of already knew a lot of the things that we were learning, but the class was also very hands-on. So like it wasn't much like the teacher would sit there and talk. It was more like go out there and just make stuff.
Mm,
Every week we would make
amazing.
some new thing. So I really enjoyed that. And I just made like a bunch of like trash films, but that's got me better.
Hell
And I
yeah.
got to just work with the classmates there. And then my last year, I actually had to drop that class because I was like, okay, I'm doing video, but I actually want to learn photography. So I had to tell my teacher, like, hey, I'm not gonna be in your class. He was kind of mad for a little bit, but he was like, damn, like I thought, like we had like he wanted me to stay in his class, but I was like, I have to leave for photography. So then I liked my photography teacher too. So um I learned a lot in that class as well. I wouldn't say I necessarily learned a lot, but I got to do a lot, which in turn like
Allowed you to learn. You got
allowed
the,
me to learn.
yeah,
Yeah.
you got the
It's just
reps in.
about doing. Yeah, I got the reps in, exactly. And that's all it is. Like you can only learn so much without doing. So I like the way those classes were. We did a lot. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But
Amazing. And you transition, you go to the University of what, Arlington or Texas
yeah.
Arlington?
I went to the University of Texas at Arlington.
There we go.
So
There we go. All right.
yeah.
University of Texas at Arlington. You study, what is it, communications technology or
Yeah,
something in the
so
nature?
that like in the middle is a big part of my story. I say like this is
Yeah,
something I
sure.
usually say often, but in high school, I obviously, dreamed about every day being in those classes and taking that every day. I would be so engrossed in that environment. Like, yeah, like I want to be a filmmaker. I want to do this. I want to, like, this is what I want to do. I love it so much. I had so many years of that experience and whatnot. But when it got time to actually make that decision, I remember in high school, I'm looking at like what my options were, my senior year, and I'm like, dang, like I wish I could go to film school at like NYU. I
All
wish
right.
I could go to USC for film school.
Mhm.
And part of me like really, really wanted to do that. I think a part of me was honestly just lazy. Like I didn't
Mm,
look into this stuff early enough. A part of me didn't believe in myself. I was like, dang, like I don't have like the work like you need like to make short films, and you need to do this and that. Like I'm not good enough for this. Like there was a lot of things. But more so than that, I just didn't go to film school because I felt like it's not really for me.
mm,
And I was like, let me think about what I actually see myself doing that's realistic in a way when I was a senior. So I decided, you know what, like I'm not going to go to film school. I'm going to toss that to the side. Like I'm going to actually just go and do computer science. So that's what I did when I went to UTA. I was like, I'm just going to do computer science because it's like the stable career. It's what everybody's doing. It's it's something that gives you that status in a way. It's
right.
like quote unquote the right thing to be doing. And I didn't want to do the wrong thing, which to me felt like filmmaking.
Hmm.
And
Very interesting. Yeah.
yeah, so I actually went my first one or two, basically I spent like a year in that but that year or two that I was in computer science, like that's when everything started kind of getting
clicking for you.
together.
Right.
Yeah. You
So
do something that you don't want to do.
and
That's
it
how you
comes to
find
like
out. You find out what you really want to do for real. Like,
hell yeah. I love that. I love that. I love that. And I also find it interesting. I feel like so many people, probably people listening right now are like going through that same struggle where they're like, they have this creative urge to like tap into those juices that have been flowing through them since they were a kid. But there's just this, I think it's kind of dwindling a little by little now, due to just like changes in society, but there's still that energy around anything in the creative world where it's like, this isn't a real job. This isn't the right thing to do. You're wasting your time. You're going to end up broke. You're going to be a starving artist. Like there's all these like, um, I guess, uh, negative frameworks, mental frameworks that have been created around that community that it makes it tough for children coming up who want to go that route to actually do it. And I would say especially, and I want to say especially because, obviously we focus on these type of people in our audience, but like especially like immigrant households. Like if you're coming
yeah.
from, like anything where like the family, your mom, your dad, maybe it's your grandparents, like moved to America for education. Like most of the time that's what they'll say. We moved here to give you a better education or a better life, which oftentimes is true. But like if you don't go, if you're like, I'm gonna go be a creator, they're like, what the hell does that mean? YouTuber? What? Like
What?
so
Yeah.
so
It breaks their whole understanding of how this place works. And like,
mm,
it's
mm,
it's so hard to kind of explain the way the world is moving to, like our
totally.
parents and whatnot. Like,
How do
yeah.
you go about doing that? Have you had any like what's that been like for you, whether it's with your mom or dad or uncles or aunts? Like how has that gone for you explaining the work that you do? And like how do those conversations go? How are you navigating those conversations when you do have them?
So, I have a very unique, I'd say I also have like a very unique like thing. So one thing is my parents are divorced as well. So it's really only my mom that had a big role in making decisions and whatnot in my life.
Right.
And aside from that, it's like my mom is always very supportive, and anything I would kind of do, like she would question it. Like when I started doing more photography and whatnot, like she would kind of question it. But I never also made a big deal out of it. I wasn't like, Mom, I'm tired of this. I'm gonna quit everything and just do, like, I never had that conversation. I
Right.
just kind of did it because I'm also like, she's not like one of those helicopter parents where she's like, where are you? What are you doing? Like, she trusts me to do everything I wanted. Like, that's how I grew up. Like, I don't, she's not in a way like a stereotypical immigrant parent, like those that hover over me,
Right.
which I know I've heard a lot of people's stories like that, which I just don't have that. So, but which I'm kind of glad, but
Hell yeah.
yeah,
Gratitude.
yeah, I have a lot of gratitude for that. So like basically like when I was in college and I actually ended up switching my major, which we kind of skipped that part, but like I switched my major to something pretty much easy that I kind of already knew how to do in a way. And I did that freed up a lot of my time to just work on photography and filmmaking. So I'm like in school, but really I'm building what I want to build. So like by the
which
time I got
which
out of school,
was
which was just networking with, which I didn't really know what I was building, but I was just taking any opportunity I could to just film and
Mhm.
photograph for people at
Reps.
that time. And pretty much just building myself up as a creative, as a photographer, filmmaker, and trying to, I mean, my whole goal, which is what I'm doing right now, is just working with people to tell their stories visually. And so that's what I was doing when I was in college, the seeds of that. And by the time I graduated, like things were at a point where they were working out enough for me to just be like, hey, I like, this is what I'm doing
I
because I'm
love it.
already like decently successful at it. And my mom had no problem because it was already, she already knew that. Like people were coming up to her, especially I think it's so validating when like other people come up to your parents and be like, oh yeah, like I see your son, like, I feel like immigrant parents, at least in my community, they take a lot of they it's always about like the opinions of others. So
Right. Right.
so
Yeah.
that's a heavily important aspect. I wouldn't say like my mom is so like, oh, like what do they think, but in any person's life, if somebody tells you, oh, your son is doing this, like, it's great. They're gonna be like, oh,
They're gonna be lit.
they're gonna be lit. They're gonna be like, damn, yeah, that's right. Like,
Yeah, they were like, yeah, I knew that, and I did
I knew that.
that.
Yeah. Exactly. They're gonna be like, yeah, I did that. Like,
Yeah, I
yeah.
love it. That's amazing. That's amazing. So, um, do you have a like, I guess, a brand or a business that you, I guess, put out to the world? Now, I saw your email and I saw Creator Studios.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm
That's
wondering,
exactly it.
okay? Awesome. So I wanted to ask you kind of when that started. I don't know if that started in college, if you came up with that idea or started like launching that with that name in high school. I wanted to know that, and then my second follow up question to that would be, what has been your biggest challenge in terms of developing the brand around you and around Creator Studios, and maybe how did you overcome those or that one
Yeah.
challenge?
I love those questions. Okay, awesome. So basically, Creator Studios, I believe I established it about 3 years ago. And the reason I established it is because I realized that me as a video creator, as the brand that I'm portraying outside to the world, which is exactly the question that you're kind of getting at, right? Is that me, I only want to post things that I really, really love. And I only want to post the people I work with that I'm really, really like want to put out into the world. Social media, you're in control of your brand, your image. And so I really, on my personal page, like Tej Patel, like those is my personal brand. And so I would put out my own personal projects or work that I thought was, pretty much something that I want my audience to see, things that I'm creating out of passion or things that I think are cool, like I'm working on. And then on the business side, of course, Creator Studios is just, it's a company that specializes in video production. So we do everything from just helping like, investors, from helping things like small to medium sized businesses build their brands and tell their stories. These are things that I didn't necessarily feel, and I obviously still don't feel that I need to market on my page as a creator, because I'm trying to be a creator. I'm not trying to be
The
necessarily like
business.
the business.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I want to exactly build my business in a way where it also appeals to the type of market that I'm trying to get. Because I also realized that when you come on my page, and like for the longest time, it's like I had to make that separation, because I just realized it would pay off in the long term of like having my business. Like when I know like the clientele I have, and if they come to my business page, or they see my business brand and the way it is done, then they're likely to engage with that brand more versus my personal page, which may be a little bit more like it's just a little bit more artsy. It's a little bit more like, you know,
Might be some fire photos of you. It might be
fi-
some dope hip
yeah,
hop artists in the town that you love working with. It could be
exactly,
some of the
exactly.
things that may not be applicable to the direct niche market you're trying to work with when it comes to your business. So I definitely feel that for sure.
Yeah. But what's really interesting in a way as well is that a lot of the people that do end up working with me, I mean, that's also like I haven't done as much marketing on my brand side. I mean, I established it for this purpose, but I haven't, and I have plans to do a lot more, but like I don't really do too much on that side, because a lot of it ends up being that they, the clients that I do have like find me on my personal page, and they like what's there, and so they ask me to do things anyway. Like I
I love
get
it.
people asking me to do so many things that I don't even really market, but
I love it.
they all, they might ask me to do XYZ video that is nowhere to be found on my page, but they asked me to do it because of just like that personal brand, or like, what they see going on. I mean, I think people see what you're doing and they just want to be a part of it. And I do it like, I realized it just from talking to people, like documenting a lot of the things that I do, like when I'm going on shoots and just putting on my story, like it goes a long way in terms of people being like, oh yeah, like I want to shoot like this. Like I want to be a part of that.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like when people reach out to you, like you're essentially with the content you're sharing, it's inspiring and like tapping into what they're already envisioning for their own personal goals with their business or with their brand. So it's like if I go on your page and I see like a day in the life, and you're like going to this shoot and going to this shoot, and on this shoot, you're like downtown with this dope background. I'm like, damn, I really want that for my t-shirt brand. And then it's going to inspire that. And even though you don't post nothing about t-shirt brands, I'm going to be like, hey, I saw you shoot at this place and I like the way you shot that. I thought it was super dope. Can you do this? And you're like, actually, I can do that. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah,
I definitely feel
exactly.
that. And that all comes from you just being open and available and to share the content, share your day-to-day life of what's going on and what you find to be interesting. And what you find to be interesting might be exactly what I find to be interesting, which is going to make me want to work with you. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
exactly.
I
It's
love
it's
that.
so interesting how it works out. And I mean, at the end of the day, people, I mean, this is a common phrase, but people work with people. They don't work with
Mm.
people are working with people. So at the end of the day, it's like I'm still the face of Creator Studios. And it's like Creator Studios just lets me have some structure and organization, but you're still at the end of the day, like working with me. And that's really why I know people at the current moment work with me, is because like I'm doing it.
That's why they're going to come back too. Their
Yeah.
experience with you as a human being.
Yeah.
That's why
And
it's
then
like,
that's where it gets struggling to scale a business. That's the hardest part.
exactly. No,
But
that's real. That's real. And
yeah.
and speaking of brands and businesses and your journey, what are some of your favorite like all-time brands or companies that like had some super dope content that either inspire you today or inspired you in the past? Maybe there was, I don't know, a fucking Cheerios commercial that you thought was shot really well and they inspired you. Like, are there any brands that the content that they're posting on their social channels or on YouTube or Vimeo or wherever they're sharing their content that really inspire you and you find to be super dope?
Yeah. So I think first I think of like Nike and Apple as like the big top ones. I think I really like it because I really like their content because it's always focused more so on storytelling. It's never focused on, and people always get this wrong. Like in our field, like people are always getting this wrong. Like it's always about the story, and I've always believed in that so heavily because at the end of the day, if you want to make more money for your business, people care about the story way more than they care about the product in a way, because you can get like the product is 100% important, but like you need a good product, but you also need to tell a good story for people to buy into your product. I mean, at the end of the day, like Nike is Nike because of people that wear it, because of the story and the symbolism behind it. It's it's Nike. Like you can get an athletic shoe, you can get that clothing, like that's clothing, like fashion clothing in general. Like people are wearing things because of what it represents, what's the story behind it. Even if they don't realize it, that's why they're wearing it. And I think that's just like why I really like those two brands. Like they always focus on the story. They're focused on when it comes to Apple, they're focused on you can use this. They're not focused on the tool. They're focused on what that tool represents, which means you can use this MacBook to become like a dope producer, or you can use
Mhm.
this iPhone camera to make films. Like they're focused on that. And I think that's beautiful. I think that, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't necessarily like it's beautiful in that way that there's storytelling, and obviously it has a monetary purpose behind it, which
Right, but like
is always something to play with, with as I said, artists and business always fighting each other,
always
but
fighting each
that's
other.
where it aligns.
And that's also where like the true like that's where like the explosiveness happens, is when you figure out how to combine the two and let them live together in the same room and let them be unified, and that the fact that they don't have to be so separated and so like money doesn't have to be evil, and it doesn't, your creativity doesn't have to be inspired by money, and your money doesn't have to be the reason you're doing creative. If you can just do great work, tell amazing stories, produce amazing content, produce amazing products, produce amazing services, you're going to get paid regardless. Somebody's going to try to pay you even if you offered it for free. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if you try to offer your services for free for the rest of your life, bro, and you just kept making stupid fire shit, somebody's going to come around and be like, I don't want to do it for free. I want to give you money. So that's
Yeah. I mean,
gonna
that's
happen.
practically what I did for real. Like practically what I did for real, like at the beginning, which is a whole different topic that I realized in itself. which we could touch on,
We can
but
touch
like,
on it now. Yeah.
yeah, like, which I basically, starting out, I did a lot of work for free or for cheap just to build my portfolio up. And of course, like when you're starting out, like it's very hard to have that leverage. Like now I have a lot of leverage in the way that like, this is the price, this is the price range. Like it's a lot easier to negotiate once you've been in the business and once you've been creating for a while. But like when you're starting out, it's so hard because you don't have any portfolio and nobody really is asking for you. When you don't have people asking for you, you have to ask them. So it's hard for you to ask somebody if I can do something and you pay me for it, which is kind of a misconception I realized only recently. But I'll say that it is hard. That's what a lot of creators go through. And personally speaking, I did a lot of free or cheap work, and to get to bigger opportunities or to build my portfolio and really make it look like I'm getting paid until somebody decided to pay me. Yeah.
No, I hear that. But how did you go about doing that? Because that's one of the things I wanted to talk about, is just like creating opportunities for yourself as a creative. Are you like, what was your strategy of getting work, I guess? Because like, I mean, maybe you were just posting content and that's how you started getting business from the very beginning. I don't know if that's exactly what happened, but like for you and based off of your experience, what do you suggest to other creators that are coming up? Say there's like a 16-year-old, he just bought a camera and he's like, I'm about to start going ham. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you suggest he does to start, making this be a career long term? You get what I'm saying? What was your strategy and what do you suggest to young people coming up?
For sure. So I'd say there's definitely a couple ways to go about it, but it comes down to one thing, is realizing that you have to knock on doors to get opportunities, especially in the beginning. Even when you get far in your career, even to this day, I have to knock on doors to get opportunities. I'm more likely to get those opportunities, but I still have to knock on those doors to try and get them. Like I'm more likely to get them than I was before, not in general, but but what I mean to say is what I used to do is actually just sit down, and I used to go look at businesses that I thought I could help, or people in my city that I thought I could help. I would make lists of people, like these are the people that are kind of popping in my city that I want to work with. And then I would reach out to them, and I would really only reach out to them if I thought like, okay, like I can actually help them. Like, oh, this person has a
That's
fashion
important.
brand.
That's important. Pause right there. Pause right there real quick.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think a lot of people, as we start to get older, or once you've been in the game, or once you've been in business or entrepreneur or creative for long enough, you kind of figure this out. But for young people listening to this, you need to be providing value. You need to be providing value. It sounds like such a cliche statement, but it is one of the most important things. I don't care if you email 7,000 people. If you're not providing those 7,000 people value, and you're not putting it in words that allow them to understand the value you're providing for them, you're not going to get opportunities. You might get one or two, but if you're of no value to the people that you got those opportunities from, they're not going to come back to you. So make sure you can actually provide value for these people you think that you want to work with. Don't just think you want to work with them. How can you provide value? Put that plan together, develop the skills necessary to provide that value you think they need, then, take after it. So sorry, continue, but that's just super important because,
Yeah, no, that's
yeah,
exactly. I agree 100% with what you said. I mean, that's it. And at the end of the day, like I see so many photographers wanting opportunity, or like, whoever creatives that want opportunities, but they'll just be like, hey, I'm a designer. If you need anything, let me know. Like you kind of have to, if you really want to make things happen, you have to be like, I notice you're trying to market your clothes, but you would do better if you had some good photos, and I could do that for you, and like you be very specific with it. The more specific you can be with it, the better. I know that I've on multiple occasions just done things like on my own that I've done for brands that like get a lot of attention. Like I don't know if you looked at this, but I one time made this commercial for cacti, for Travis Scott's cacti drink.
Yeah.
And I just did it because I thought that like I knew like the timing was right. I knew that
you posted that video on TikTok, didn't you?
I posted on TikTok and Twitter. Yeah.
I saw it on TikTok, and that's actually how I found you, by the way, but continue.
See, that's crazy. Exactly. Like I actually, so many people I know now, like kind of told me like, like, oh yeah, like I remember that, like seen that, which is exactly what I'm saying. Like it kind of pays off, but nobody is like, I remember when I posted that video, like I'm making a commercial for Travis Scott's cacti drink. People were telling me like, yo, like you're doing work for free for like a millionaire. Like this is ridiculous. Like, why would you even do this? Like, I understood that me doing that was going to bring in way more attention. Like cacti is not going to hit me up. They don't know who I am. They don't know like who I am at all. I don't have work like that. They don't have any reason to hit me up. So I decided, let me just make something and get their attention. And that's kind of what it takes sometimes. Like you have to get the attention of people that you're doing. Sometimes an email is not enough. Sometimes you have to make something and say, hey, like I made this, like this gets attention.
Yeah, and to like give like a quick example in terms of like podcasting, because I know I have a lot of podcasting people that want to do podcasting right now and want to interview certain people. Like one thing that I've noticed for myself that like I halfway do on purpose, but most of the time I don't even really do on purpose. I just end up noticing it, and it. Anyways, to get to the point is so if there's somebody that I want to have on my podcast, say it's I like to interview business people, right? So say I want to interview Alex Hormozy, who's like a huge sales marketing guy in the gym space, but also is doing a lot of other stuff. Dope guy, right? But he has a large following. He's making like 47 million or more a year. Like he's not going to be paying attention to me. So what do? I start interviewing people in his network that aren't on his level yet. So maybe they're super dope. They have a lot of value to provide to my audience, but they're also connected to Alex. So interview them, then interview the next person, and then it kind of falls on. Then all of a sudden, this person now knows who I am because I've been creating in the space that they're in purposefully. So it's like that's like a podcasting example, but like your example is so perfect, especially for creators. It's like, if you're a producer, like you need to be making beats that if you want to work with Lil Wayne, make fucking 50 beat packs a year that sound just like Lil Wayne's like type of style, and be putting that in front of his artists that he signs under him, or put that in front of people from his city that he pays attention to. Look at his Twitter and see whose page he's been liking, and then go and make beats for those people's pages. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be very creative. Like you said, an email or a DM may not be enough. And it makes sense because most of the time the people you want to work with are probably people with big followings. It's going to be hard for them to see your DM when they have 100,000 followers and 100,000 people DMing them. So you got to be more creative. But
I agree. It's all about breaking through that noise. And there's so much noise. It's like, how can you break through? And there's so many creative ways to do it. I'll give another example too. Like, I know that. So during the pandemic, actually, like Zeke, who I work with, started streaming. And I noticed like one day on Instagram, he posted like just a photo of his stream. And I was like, like we can do better than this. I just whipped him up. I just whipped him up a little like dope video to promote his stream. And I felt like that's just something a lot of people wouldn't do, because like they wait till somebody asks them to do something. It's like, no, like I realized that this is something I have the skill to improve. And then I just texted to him, and it's done. What that really shows as a creative though, for like, people that are listening in, is that sometimes you just have to show that people don't always understand that this is something that needs to be done, or this is something that I could actually use help with. But you have to sometimes just show them. You have to sometimes just provide that value and do things yourself. Like you can't just wait till somebody tells you what to do. Like and I mean, that's how you be successful at the end of the day. Like, are you somebody that always has to be given orders, or are you somebody that can actually identify a problem, identify where somebody could use your expertise, and then provide that value?
Man,
and that's the whole difference.
That's how you gonna win. In conclusion, knock on the motherfucking doors.
Knock on the doors. Exactly. That too.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So you kind of jumped into it already. So I wanted you to share before we move on to our second section. Move on to the second section of questions. I wanted to ask you about your story of how you ended up connecting with Ezekiel and how you ended up getting the Dallas Cowboys work, being able to shoot some of their content on the field?
Yeah, so that is a crazy story. It all starts out at a Young Thug concert.
Of all
So,
places.
of all places, it starts out at a Young Thug concert. Like, it is a long story of many years that only like literally makes no sense, but it makes sense now, years later. But basically, what happened is any show that would come into town, I would always try to go and photograph it because I was really into music photography. Another thing is that the hip hop scene, the hip hop scene was so related to like fashion, music, and sports. Like, they're also interconnected, which I
Hell yeah.
realized. But
Hell yeah.
another thing is, like, whenever I would go to hip hop shows, I would always feel like very accepted. I always felt like me going there with the camera, I was involved with the community. I would meet familiar people, familiar artists. I always felt like very accepted to go there versus me like shooting other places. I would maybe feel out of place. I always felt very accepted whenever I go to hip hop shows. So anyway, like, I wanted to go photograph this Young Thug and 21 Savage show, and I had no idea like how to do that. I mean, I kind of had a strategy. So what I would do whenever any big show would come into town, I would start messaging the manager. I would start messaging the artist. I would message the opening artist, like try to see like who could use me as a photographer so I can get in. And nobody responded. But like an hour before the show, I noticed Young Thug's photographer goes on Instagram Live, literally hop on his live. I'm like, hey, bro, like, I'm a photographer. I would love to help you photograph the show, something along the lines of like something like that. And he was amazing enough, so thankful. Like, and the crazy thing is, like, there's so many people like this in my experience, like so many creatives that are willing to help other creatives. And this was just amazing. Like, he was like, yeah, sure. Like, he DM'd me after live ended and was like, yeah, I wrote you a pass. Like, pick it up when you get here. So I rushed over to the venue to go photograph this show, and I photographed it, and then I posted the photos. And I think what I would do after these shows is I would start like to build up my audience and build up my reach, is like I would tap the like location on Instagram and just start commenting and liking like people that
Right. We're
like
there.
posted, yeah,
Mhm.
that were there. So that way I would get more attention on my stuff. So then so then after I posted like some of the photos, like there was this crazy photo I took of Young Thug, which is like one of the best photos I've probably still taken to this day. But somebody DM'd me after that, and they were like, yo, like, this is fire. Like, we got to shoot. And I was like, okay, like, this is great. Like, I'm always down to shoot because this is like, I'm so hungry for these
You're like,
opportunities.
yes,
Like, let's
yes,
get
I
it.
would like to come.
I would like to go shoot. So I did a photo shoot, and it was for this artist. His name is Rez. Like, me and him are really cool. He gave me like this huge opportunity in a way. Like, he made a lot of opportunities happen for me by just believing me and trusting me early on to, like, shoot for him. And he's an artist now. And so he basically let me do the shoot. We kept working. And then one night he hits me up. He calls me. He's like, hey, do you want to come to this G-Eazy concert? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I would love to come to this G-Eazy's concert. So I come there with my camera. And then he introduced me to Zeke that day. And I'm just going around with them, like taking photos. Like, at the same time, like Trippie Redd is there. Like, I took a photo with him and Trippie Redd and Halsey, G-Eazy, like Fora. It was a kind of a crazy night in a way for me to be in that, like, meeting all these stars. At the same time, I'm like, it also felt right because I was like, this is what I've kind of been wanting to do. So it wasn't like,
Right.
yeah. So
You didn't
it
end
was
up.
it
You
was
didn't
just
end up there
cool.
on accident. That's for sure.
Yeah, and at the time I was just like, this is crazy. It was just moving fast. I didn't even really have time to process in that way. I'm only looking back on it like this was a crazy moment because I'm looking back on it. And it's just like after that, like similar experiences happened. I'm still doing my thing. I'm going to shows. I'm still working. I'm doing, like, my life did not change after that one night. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, I'm going right back to my college classes and working. I'm doing this and that, like, still grinding on whatever projects I can find from anything I can do. But over time, like, Zeke asked me to do a couple more things for him, like, and over time, what really happened is, we got a little bit more familiar, and he asked me a couple, or I guess like almost a year ago, like, like I'm really trying to work on my social media, this off season, because I don't have anything to post. And I was like, yeah, like we could totally get that done. Like, let's do it. Like, this is like kind of something I'm waiting for, in a way, like I'm ready to go to work. So we basically went to work, and I just started creating all of these different content pieces for him to post during the off season. I think we did that, and I don't think any other players were really doing that. And it generated so much attention. Like literally, I feel Zeke was the talk of that whole offseason last year, because nobody's really creating that content. And also he's of course, like a superstar, and everybody's got their eyes on him. But also in terms of creating that content, we took the fans on this whole journey from being like this whole redemption arc in a way, of a story. That's what people have told me when they watched it over time. And just seeing him train, they got so hyped up for the season and whatnot. And we generated all that attention. And after I made those videos, like the NFL hit me up and were basically like, why don't you just do this in the season 2? And I was like, sure. That's pretty much exactly how it went. I was like, yeah. So that's pretty much how it happened. Like things really move fast in a way after that. So, but
I love it. I love
that's
it.
how that whole thing went down.
I did want to ask 2 follow-up questions, and feel free to veto, like, and not
Yeah,
have
that's
to
cool.
answer this if you're not allowed to or whatever. But I just think some of the audience members might be interested. So when you get hit up by the NFL, do you mean the NFL like DM'd you, or like how exactly did that work?
So like basically like somebody that works a part of the specific team, I guess you could say, the team of content creators they have. It's actually called the LCC program. So they have this, that's pretty much like the division of content creators they have across the nation. So basically one of the people that run that team DM me and asked me to, kind of just connect with them. We had a call, basically like an interview, I guess you could say. And after that, after everything, like, they decided everything aligned, they were like, yeah, like, let's just lock in and set everything up.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So I did want to ask again, these are like more follow-up questions along that
That's all good. No, I
along
mean, I enjoy this because you're looking at like, how can people, I mean, everyone kind of wants to replicate, and not replicate, but like, see how they can make this work. So I'm open to as much as I can provide.
Right on, right on. So I was wondering, like, exactly, so they hit you up, they had like a interview, like what does like pregame look like? And we're gonna extend this interview a little longer if you're okay, because I do want to ask you these other questions aside from these. So
I'm
are
all
you good on
good.
time? But
I'm all
perfect.
good. I'm all good.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. So can you talk about yeah, what does like pregame look like? So your first game you went to, like how are you getting like state, like what's the day look like? How does a game
Yeah.
day look like for people
Well,
who might end
I'm
up
a,
doing that in the future?
yeah. I'll say one thing is like, you mentioned my first game. This is not necessarily answering your question, but I'll say one thing that I think might be helpful for other people is like, when I had my first game, I was like, in a way, going through it. I was like, in my head, like, damn, like, this is crazy, because my whole journey, I've never like really worked with somebody as big as the NFL. Like, you don't really do that.
Right.
Like the NFL is one of the biggest people that you can really work with in a way. So I was like, damn, like, how did I even end up here? Like, I really hope I don't mess this up, because I've never, like, literally my first game was the second time I ever been to a football game in my whole life. Like, I've
Damn.
never been to a football game. The only other time before that was like one time I did something with Zeke. Like, I was filming for Zeke. So I ended up going to a football game. That was my first time going to a game.
That's
And then my
hilarious.
second time was like, on the field on the second time, and filming. So I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I'm not even like a big football like fan in a way. So somehow I ended up working like that. Like, now I'm a huge football fan, but like growing up I wasn't. So I don't even really understand the game like that. And I'm just like, damn. But I had to definitely tell myself that, like, and other people told me the same thing. Some of the people that I worked with, they were like, like, you wouldn't be here if like if you weren't invited, or what was it? It was like, just do what got you invited. And I just told myself that, like,
I
At
love
the end
that.
of the day, like that's why you're there. Like just do what got you invited. It's as simple as that. Like, cause like we always, I guess, feel that we're not like worthy in a way sometimes. Like you have the imposter syndrome of
Hell yeah.
whenever you're going through things. I usually don't have it, but that was one situation where I did have it. But to answer your question, a pre-game, how it looks like is we get there about 4 hours before the game. We just go inside and we start like we get the arrivals of the players. We get all of them arriving, and then after that, we're getting the warm-ups. And during this whole time, like in between things, like we're getting the content and we're sending it out. So people are posting it, like we're sending it out and they're
5
posting it
minutes
all
later.
over social media. Yeah, like 5 minutes, like ASAP, like as soon as they get it. And then, I mean, it gets even crazier when we get in the game, because in the game, it's like we're getting, we're focusing on the major moments like touchdowns and things like that. So as soon as they get a touchdown, we're running over to our laptops and like sending it right there. And we're just doing that the whole game, like any major moments that happen. And
That's
then
crazy. So y'all
we
running
get
back and
home.
forth. Y'all
Yeah.
catching. I'm just imagining it in my head. You're like catch content, catch content, catch content. You have a moment to like run to your laptop. You run back to your laptop, take the chip out, plug the. I don't know how that works in
Yeah,
terms, but
yeah. That's exactly pretty much what it is. Yeah. You
take
take
the
the chip
chip
out.
out,
Yeah.
put it in the computer, upload it, boom, send it off. I assume you guys upload it to a drive or something like that that's connected to something, blah blah blah. Then boom, boom, boom. That's crazy. That's awesome
Yeah.
though. That's
But
that's
it's
super dope
only,
to think about.
it's not as it is crazy, but it's not like we have to do it so much. It's like only at the touchdowns. But like
Right,
if the
right. I
game
get
is
it.
getting
Yeah.
really crazy, then yeah, but you're not gonna have a touchdown every 2 seconds. But
Right. Hell
it's
no.
manageable, but it's definitely like, yeah, I mean, speed is the game. Like we want to get that. Like that's the whole thing. Like getting it ASAP. Like that's how the whole world works. Like people need it ASAP. So
That's
it's
the whole
the
point of
coolest
social
part
media.
is like the coolest part is going home and like you get to see like your videos and everything
Yeah.
like all over. Like you're just like our content gets posted by so many people. It's just
So
open
many.
for
Yeah.
like whoever the NFL was, like the different teams, it was the players, like you see
Whoever's
your content
following
everywhere.
them, Kanye
Yeah,
West, whoever. Yeah.
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 So it's cool to see that for
That's sick.
sure.
Do you remember like the first time like you saw some of your work and you like showed somebody like one of your friends or mom or something and you're like, Ma, look, or like, hey bro, look what I did. Do you remember the
I
first time?
remember the first time, but yeah, like I mean, I reposted on my story or like show people
Of course.
and
Yeah.
if it's something really cool, I'll show people. Yeah, I mean, it is a cool feeling, like in a way. I I don't know, like I don't think I particularly was super like crazed, but it is definitely a cool. I don't know. I feel like I'm not outwardly crazy that much,
No,
but
I feel you.
yeah, like in
You're
my head,
humble
I'm
with it.
like,
You're
this
like,
is
this is
crazy.
dope.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel it. Right on, man. I love that. I did want to cover that part, so I'm glad we got to talk about that. I want to transition to my last few questions for the day. These are kind of a little bit more, I guess you could say, personal, and hopefully the insights from these questions can kind of help people out there with whatever they're going through or wherever they're at right now in their life. So, um, the first question is, what is one of the best or maybe the most worthwhile investments you've ever made? It could be in investment of money, it could be time, it could be energy. What would you say, like, in the past, 3 to 5 years was like the most worthwhile investment you've ever made?
Good question. I want to say, for me, what I think what really sped me up, honestly, was buying a fast computer, because prior.
Oh, we have a little pause. Must have froze.
Oh, I
Oh,
think we froze for a second.
there we
We're
are.
good now.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead. Continue. You start with the last thing I heard you say was uh can you hear me, by the way?
Yes, yes,
Awesome,
yes.
awesome. So the last thing I heard you say was getting a fast computer.
Yeah. So getting a fast computer, I was gonna say in a few years that answer will probably change to something, because I'm more conscious about my health and whatnot now. But
Right.
a couple years ago, I remember like I was editing on this, I think like an older laptop or something like that, like something that wasn't good. When I got like a faster computer to edit, and I like it was a big investment for me at the time. It was really a big deal because I just became so much more efficient. Like I could edit my projects so much faster. And that in turn, like let me just have like be able to do more projects. Like I had a way better time. And that's just it. Like it comes down to that efficiency. Like I'm a big believer in being efficient. So that me investing my money to buy that lap or buy that computer, like I remember it paying off like instantly because I was able to just work so much more productive.
Hell yeah. I love it. I love it. And so, first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you guys are thinking about what could be the most worthwhile investment you could make in the next few months that's going to help you, I guess you could say, speed up your timeline to whatever goals that you have. Have you been spending money where it doesn't have any value add? And could you allocate that money somewhere else? Have you been spending time somewhere where it could be allocated to something more important? So just think about that moving forward for the rest of this podcast. What's an unusual habit or maybe an absurd thing that you really, really love doing or that you really, really love? It could be, a specific Netflix show nobody would think about. It could be going golfing on the water, whatever it is. What's an unusual habit or maybe an absurd thing that you really love?
Dang, this is a interesting question. I don't know. I have a lot of weird things about me. Like for example, I have this Harry Potter one that I use. I didn't use it right now, but I just hold this and talk to people sometimes.
That is
So
very interesting. I like that. That's actually a great one. That's a great
it's a
one.
new thing. It's a new thing. And another thing that my friends always tell me is that I always like hold random objects that are like I'll just be talking to people, and I didn't do it on this podcast, but like I'll just like take like a lighter and just start like just doing this like when I'm talking to people. They're just like, what's wrong with you? Like you're gonna hurt somebody, or you're gonna hurt yourself. Um, so those are a few things.
I know. I love it. I love it. This is a way for the audience to get to know you a little bit better before we wrap up. In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life? So first we talked about the worthwhile investment. This is more of a belief, a mindset, or certain actions you've been taking that have improved your life greatly over the past few years.
Yeah, I definitely say in the past few years, I started being more intentional with my days
Hmm.
because, I also got this tat because in memory of like one of my friends that I lost in a way, it says you can die anytime.
Hmm.
And I got that because it's just like, I realized that it's so true. Like we have so many different dreams and aspirations. And like if you lose somebody like that's at it, that they're at a young age and they have so many dreams and aspirations, like it makes you feel like I can't waste my time here. Like
Right.
I have so many different things that I want to do, and I have to be like making use of that time. And I think that's something I've really changed, like being as intentional as possible with my time, my relationships with people, like all these different things, because you'll be getting pushed and tugged like all sorts of different ways of where your time should be spent and what you should be doing. But like at the end of the day, it's like you don't know when you could be gone. So that's why, like, really over the past few years, I've done a lot more work on just putting more content out, because that's my content out in a way. I mean, like just trying to tell my story and inspire people to do what they want to do. Like that's what I find the most fulfillment in. And so yeah, that's pretty much like one of my biggest mind shift switches from the past few years.
Tongue twister. No, I
Yeah,
love
tongue
that.
twister
I
for real.
love that. Super important, man. Intentionality in everything that we do in our day-to-day life, and understanding that time is limited. It is limited, and you don't have a control in when, it leaves or comes or goes or anything like that. So make the best of every day. I love it. So before we sign out today, I want you to share with the people, specifically creators out there, what you think is the most important piece of advice at this current moment in your life for creators, young creators to know coming up and coming in the game. And this is any type of creator. This can be, somebody who specifically wants to work for the NFL. It could be somebody who wants to be Young Thug's next photographer. What do you think is like the most important piece of advice or skill that they need to have coming into the game?
I'm gonna say two things. So one, I'm
That's
gonna
fine.
say you
Go ahead.
just gotta get started, and that means you can't be waiting on trying to get the next piece of latest equipment, or you can't be waiting on this and that. Like, you just have to get started. The more things you make, the better you're gonna be. It's gonna take you like maybe 100 times, maybe 1,000 times, maybe 2,000 times. Like, who knows like how many times it's
Those
gonna take
reps.
you, but you're always like, yeah, those reps. And you're always one poster, you're always one thing away from like that big next leap, and you don't know what that is going to be, but you just have to really just get started and doing those reps. I think a lot of people are just waiting for that right time. Like, you have to get started. The next thing I think I realized is also what I'm realizing more now is, or like I've always kind of know this, but I guess early on I always thought like kind of what you said, like, oh, like I want to be Young Thug's photographer. I want to do that with this person. Like, I want to be Drake's photographer. I want to work with Drake. I want to make no, like, what I realize is there's more fulfillment with you building with the people around you. And if you really realize all these people like Drake, like, you realize that the people they work with, they've been working with for a long time. Like, they
Mm,
really, for the most part, like, obviously not everybody, but they've been working with people. And you look into stories of all these great people, they built their teams years ago, and they've been working together. They both came up together. And it's like, we're like, what really sets us back is like, we're always looking for that opportunity from somebody that's 5,000 steps ahead of us. And
mm,
I'd rather build with the people that are around me. There's more fulfillment in it. You're just gonna feel better about it overall. Like, you're gonna build with the people around you. You're gonna go from nothing to something with that group, with that brand. And it's just
absolutely.
gonna bring you like more success, rather than, yeah, like, rather than just like stepping into what somebody else already built.
Yeah.
Building something on your own is just like way more, it's just gonna be better.
That sparked the quote that I think summarizes everything you just said right there, from Naval. And Naval says, "Build long-term relationships with long-term people.
Mm-hmm.
Build long-term relationships with long-term people." And I think that's super important to understand the value of compound interest. And that compound interest applies to friendships, not just money. It applies to business relationships, not just money. And applies to creativity and putting out content, not just money. The compounded interest of being consistent and putting in that work every single day, and understanding, that that will pay off in the long run, is super key. Like Nipsey Hussle said, rest in peace to the king. The marathon continues. You just got to keep going. So I love it, man. Before we sign out of here today, man, I just want to say I really appreciate your time on this conversation. I love being able to talk to other people, similar age group, and hearing their stories and seeing what they're doing, and allowing them to have a space to share, their journey, and to reflect on their journey. Because I'm sure there was some processes during this conversation where you got the opportunity
Yes.
to reflect. And I'm sure you inspired somebody in the audience today. It doesn't matter if it was all of them, but I'm sure there was one, and that's all that matters, man. So before we sign out, share where they can find you, where they can support your work, how they can tap in with you if they live in Dallas or around Dallas, or they have money and they live in California, can fly you out. Anybody who wants to work with you, where can they find you? Where can they find your work? How can they support you?
Yeah, so at Tej Patel, yeah, all platforms. We got Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. TikTok is my main platform I'm creating on right now. Tap in on YouTube as well. But just, that's the name, Tej Patel, on everything.
And do you have a website?
I do have a website, tejpatel.com.
Love it. Love it. And let me ask you one last question.
Let's get it. We're
I,
here.
I say less. We're here. We got to take advantage of it. All right. It's your last day on earth. You're 177 years old. Your great great grandkids are sitting at your feet. They ask you, great great grandpa, can you give me a piece of advice on how to live life? And this is all they're going to remember you for. What are you going to say?
God damn. This is a tough question. Let's see. I mean, I would probably say the same thing. It's just like what I said earlier is just, I would say the same. I would probably say the same thing. It's just like your life is not guaranteed today or tomorrow, or like it's not guaranteed. And the people around you's life is not guaranteed. So make sure you understand that and go about your life doing what you want to do, and don't let anybody push and pull you in whatever direction that you don't want to go in because you're trying to make them happy. Just make yourself happy.
I love it. I love it. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, leave a 5-star review, share with a friend, as that is the only way we can grow. This is your boy on the College Stetzer Show, CIZZY, signing out.